Okay, everybody, this is the tremolo pedal from Aliexpress. It's a kit, and you build it yourself. Our amplifier today of choice is an Epiphone Valve Senior, all tube, double 6V6, 18 watt, so clean sound. Oops. So that's the amp with just its own reverb, and then we'll put our tremolo pedal on. It has speed, volume, and depth. Volume is set at what I think is about unity. So that's the depth almost dimed. The depth, let's just dime it out. So I find the depth needs to be fairly high. It seems to still maintain the effect even around here, but I like it a little bit stronger than more subtle. And so we'll go to maximum depth here, and we'll just check the speed range from slowest to fastest. The other thing that's pretty cool about this is because we have the volume, we actually have a booster circuit in this. So I can actually just turn the depth down to 0. I get no tremolo effect, but I can turn that volume up and we can scare my amplifier, but we can actually overdrive our amplifier with it. So this also will actually double as a booster pedal. Pretty cool. The watching me build it portion of the video is coming up, and if you're planning on building this yourself, if you run into any struggles, please by all means at least catch the last few minutes of the video. There's an addendum on there because when I did get this together initially, it did not work, and I had to go back and do a little bit of reconnaissance as to why it didn't work, but it obviously works now, and it works fine, and I think it sounds really good. And these things, you can buy them for, what, $22 or so, and that includes shipping to the United States. Not a bad kit. Takes a couple hours to build, just and a little bit of patience and a soldering iron and some normal tools you have around your house. But stay tuned for the build if you're curious on what I did to make this thing. Okay, good afternoon, YouTube. Alright, so hopefully this is part 2 of the video for you. This is where we're going to build. In this case, this is a tremolo pedal. It's one of our Aliexpress kits. I've done a few of these before. It looks like there's some improvements. Initially, when I looked at this and I saw the light green colored board, I kind of gritted my teeth because the light green boards were originally made for a 6-point switch. I like that they put the transistors in there already for you, apparently to help you out, but this one will actually fit the switch here, so that's kind of cool. And the transistors apparently are already sitting in place in this thing. So we have the transistors, we have some capacitors which will sort. We did get wire this time. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. we have our 3 potentiometers, which I like these style okay. These are good. Our input and output jacks, which are both stereo in this case. Doesn't matter if you have one that is and one that isn't. Battery clip, knobs, indicator light, and power jack. And this time we got brown feet instead of black feet, but that's fine. Don't see that that hurts anything. We have our resistors. Here's some screws for the case, so we'll put those in the case for now. And we have our capacitors. Let's try to sort these out real quick. Just sort them and put them in different little piles. Because the resistors are well marked. They have a habit of marking them with their colors. So our resistor is... this one's... okay, something ain't right with this resistor. This has some kind of funny manufacturing faux pas in it. I don't think it will make it not work, but this one has 3 legs. Something is not right here. This thing's got an extra leg. So whenever they attach the lead, the machine must have made a goof. Oh my heavens. So this is a 474J. This is 224J. This is a 474J. So that's one with 1 leg that doesn't have a manufacturing defect in it. And then we've got 105, 105, those together. That one by itself. Is this 105 also? Yes it is, so we'll put that with that. And then we have our 22 mic 50 volt electrolytic capacitor and our resistors. Everything is pretty spread out on this board, so this should be a pretty not complicated build. And the only thing I see that I want that I don't have on my desk or bench here is the nipper tool. So let me grab that and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is the extent of what we get in our instructions. We just get a picture of our board and a list of what goes where. So it looks like our 2 transistors we have here are 2N3904s and a J201. And I see that they've already been inserted into the board this way. And I'm assuming they already inserted them into the board this way because they didn't mark the board clearly as to which direction they go in. So I'm pretty sure that's why Buddy put them in there for me ahead of time. So I'm going to assume Buddy's right. And solder those down first. I think our iron's probably hot. So where's our solder? And if I look on the website here for your vendor, you probably have a schematic there. And we already made a solder bridge. Like a goof, we already made a solder bridge. So we will fix that momentarily. I really should be using a smaller, sharper solder tip. You really should get these legs out of the way. So that looks okay, except for that solder blob. Yes, even the greatest of the great, like myself, do make mistakes from time to time. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire up our little desoldering iron and fix our problem. We're just using a good old classic Radio Shack solder sucker. So we'll give that a minute to get warm, and we'll use that quickly to clean up our solder block. I should have put on a fresh, sharp solder tip, but hey, it is what it is. So, also Buddy put in a resistor here. This is a 2-point, what is that? Is that 22K? It would be facing this way. That would be 2.2K. So the 2.2K is already in place for us. So we can tack that down too while we're at it. And fortunately we have sharp nippers today. Had some that were just really dull before. Give those a clip. And while we're giving them a clip, we're inspecting our solder joints to make sure that they're good. Good news is I am getting a better solder station. I'm going to get something nice instead of using this super cheap bargain iron. But this super cheap rig for soldering has helped me build so many things. I've got a little weird sort of sentimental attachment to it. Okay, let's see if our desoldering iron is warm enough yet. Not yet. But it is getting warm. Okay. I like on the Electro Boom channel where he's saying you can hold the soldering iron up to your lip to see if it's warm. And then he burns his face off. It's wonderful. Okay, so there are, I believe that reads 12K, so let's look on our board, which our board is clearly marked. You could probably do this without the directions. Let's see. And actually I think Buddy's got a typo because I don't see 12K, I see 1.2K. Oh, nope, there's 12K. Okay, good. So there's a 12K right there. Okay. And then the other 12K is there. Okay. Alright, now we should have this puppy hot enough. Squeeze the bulb down on the leg. As soon as that solder molts, give her a little suck and up she goes. And okay, that looks like it worked okay, but clip those leads and then we'll touch them up anyway. Because there's a thing, a cold solder joint, which if the solder cools too quickly, which it kind of has a habit of doing when you're pulling air over it to suck it up. Give that a quick little touch. And now we're okay again. So we'll unplug our desoldering iron so it doesn't accidentally take a tumble and cause any personal injury. Let that cool down. Okay, so I've got two 12K resistors in. What else do we have here? We have a 1 meg. Okay. And the 1 meg is going to go to it's 47, 15K, 1.282. There's 1 meg right there. we'll do a few more here, and then we'll just solder them down all at once. So this one says it is 20, is that 22K, I believe? No, 82K. 82K is what the fellow wrote there. So let's see if we can find the 82K on here. It's very nice of them to have labeled these resistors, because unless you're working in super good light and you're good at reading the resistor color codes against the blue background, it's a little bit more challenging than it is with the carbon resistors that use the sort of cream colored background, or the Allen Bradleys with the brown. That says 180R. 180R, or yeah, I think that's 180R, and not 180K. Problem is a K and an R when written quickly. No, 180R. There we go. So the R would just be 180 ohm. Seems like they write R on these schematics, which is fine. It means the same thing. And that should be, got 1, 2, we've got 5 resistors in. We'll do a couple more here. This is 15K. Let's find 15K. There's one here. And the other 15K is down here. Okay. That should be enough resistors for the moment. So we'll tack these down. I'll widen myself there. Okay. Nope. Enough. Sometimes these legs do get in the way. So, but I'm trying to be efficient so this doesn't end up being a 45 or 50 minute video. Make a pedal with this few components on it. That's it. Looks like I hit all the spots. I got a couple of these that ended up with a little excess solder on them. I really should be using a smaller, smarter, sharper tip. But it is what it is. Better to have a little too much solder on there than not enough. And both of them are not considered good. And I'll just touch up the ones that look a little sloppy. Come on. There, now I'm happier. Almost. Oops. There. Okay. There. Okay. A couple more resistors and then we'll move on to the capacitors. So what do we have in the bag now? $56 560K. Sometimes the handwriting's a little harder to read, but that's okay. There's a 560. And there should be a second one, which is somewhere. There it is up here. Uh-oh. I just noticed my 15K slid backwards when I was soldering it, so I ended up looking. Press that back down in the board. There. There. I had this one, I didn't bend the lead far enough and it slipped back, so it wasn't sitting flush to the board, it was sitting way off the board, which looks a little stupid. And other than that, I don't think it's actually going to hurt anything. One of the other tricks we do sometimes with the capacitors is we'll bend them 90 degrees and lay them down. But I don't feel, looking at this project, that we're going to have any clearance issues. This doesn't have any super big components in it. 47R, so 47 ohms. Leave this one up here. And two more. We have 2.2 meg, I believe. That looks like 2.2M, 2.2M. Yeah, there we go, 2.2 meg. And then 10K. $10K? $10K, no. Hold on, I'm going to have to read that because the one I need is 1.2K, not 10K. Okay, so brown, red, that's 1.2. Oh yeah, we're fine. 1.20 and the brown's, yeah, this is the right one. Oops. Okay. doing what I do, this is one of the occupations you're allowed to say oops, because you can go back and fix it. If this was brain surgery, probably wouldn't be a good idea to say oops. I would think, assuming this works well, this would probably be one of the best pedals to start with if you're a rookie, since things are generally spaced apart a lot and there's not a huge mess of components. As we clip it, we're looking for any crappy looking solder joints, or any solder joints that look like they might be a little blobbed, or that I might just want to reheat and make them look a little nicer. You see, just a few will do a little touch up on it. Not that better now. Touch that one up better. Okay, more better. Alright. Cool, so that takes care of all the resistors, and now we're on to capacitors. Now, I'm not sure what I want to do with the mutant capacitor. I think what we're going to do is we're going to clip one of the mutant legs off here, since it's got two on one side and one on the other. And what we'll do is, just in case one of those two leads isn't, for whatever reason, connected to the point inside, just put a little touch of solder up on them. Come on, play ball with me. Keeps moving. There. So that way, if the leg that I clipped off was the one that actually had connectivity, which I think they both probably did, now we should be out of the doghouse with that. So. Alright, so this is a 474, because it's the only one with 47 on it, and there's two spots for them. So put one here. Sometimes with these, if you just lay your components out ahead of time, you can pretty well figure out what goes where, even if you're not good at reading codes, which I am admittedly not good at reading codes. There's no way to put this type of capacitor backwards. The only one you could actually put backwards would be that brown one, and then it would go boom, and that would be sad. But there's an easy way to avoid putting it backwards. Okay, and then this one is marked 224J, so 224. That's only 3 components, so let's be more efficient. And we'll put in our 1 mics. These look like tantalum capacitors. I'm pretty sure that's what they are. And then on an electrolytic, the white stripe is the negative, and they marked the positive. So we'll put the white stripe opposite the plus sign, and then we'll sit her on down. Pinch. Sometimes with components where the leads are close together, it makes more sense to sprawl them than it does to pinch them. And I'm going to change a few of these that are close together because you're more likely to get a bridge if they're pinched together than if they're sprawled apart. And when you're working with a big clunky dull tip like I am today, because I chose to be lazy and not deal with it, looking good so far. A few more to go. And all the capacitors in place. And my generator outside just started. That's not because there's a power outage. It's because it's Saturday. On Saturday, the generator tests itself, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I am regretting a little bit sticking so many components on here and trying to solder them all and then clip the leads. It would have made more sense for me to maybe stick them all in and solder one and clip a few leads and then solder another one. But I'm trying to make really good time so I don't make this video super duper boring. And as a result, and not sticking my face in the camera or using all kinds of visual equipment, it's a little trickier to see at the distance, and trying to work quick gives you a higher chance of errors. So I'm screwing up because I like you people on YouTube, he said. Don't necessarily see that we're really screwing up. We're just doing a C-grade soldering average as opposed to a A-grade soldering job. A crappy workman blames his tools, but I'm not going to blame my tools, but I'm going to blame myself for that dull soldering iron tip. I did that to myself. Okay, so it appears that all of the caps are in place. And get a little bit of the excess. I got a long one here. There. Looks close enough for jazz. And they're all down, and all that's down, and nothing's got short. Yeah, I think we're cool. Okay, so we did all that. Now we move on to the pots, jacks, and the switch. I generally save this switch to the end because it's the most frustrating. Not actually, it's pretty easy, but you'll understand why, because I got to get all these other wires in here. So if I leave that till last. So, Buddy did give us some wire. And they gave us 3 pots. And somebody's calling me. Stand by. Okay, I made sure you didn't miss anything. When this sits in the case, our switch mounts there, so that goes underneath that hole. So our potentiometers are going to be going from boom, 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 and we have, they're marked D, S, V. It's kind of random. They're kind of randomly skirted around here. But all of them are going to end up here at the top of the board. So based on that assumption that this is going to have to float here, and I'm still going to have enough space to stuff it in the box, we need to kind of guess our wire length. And if I guess it a little long, nobody cares. If I guess it really long, then I make a big mess. So let's just assume I don't know which pot this is. But let's see, depth D is going to be D3, D2, D1. And the depth pot is the one over here. So the longest run is going to have to be from there to about there. So we'll go with that length for wire. And we will have to cut, since there's 3 pots, we will need 9 pieces of wire. And then there'll be 2 more for the LED, so we'll need 11 total. Notice how I'm not being precise with actually measuring them, but just taking a sample size of the wire and using it as a guide for the rest of them. It should give us within, oh, I'm pretty good, within a 1/4 inch I should get the accurate sized wire. Now I have 5 so far. Six. They were generous with the wire today. 7. On these kits, I've had cases, 8, where they were either stingy with the wire, or there was no wire at all, and you had to use your own wire. But, you know, it's anybody who does a little electronics hobby work is bound to have some electronic or some hookup wire laying around. So that said, we're going to strip a wire. Just a little bit. And then we'll have to tin said wire. We'll strip both sides. This is going to be boring and tedious, but that's okay. I said I'm going to film the whole thing, so I'm going to film the whole thing. So, but there's going to be a lot of fast forwarding through this part. I should tell some jokes. But when you get to the boring part in your project, you know, just think positive thoughts. This is going to be the greatest pedal ever. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love it. Pedals I make, they're the best pedals. Great, they're huge. Everyone loves them. Everyone agrees. These are the best. Okay. Alright, so we did our first 3. Now you have to tin our wires. Now, on wires this tiny, tinning them is a pain in the rear. So, what we'll do is we'll find a shiny spot on our iron, put a little solder there, and we'll just kind of skid her right on through and give her a roll, and they tin up okay. It really helps if you can add fresh solder or fresh rosin to them. And judging by this particular wire, the jacket does not love the heat. So this one we're going to have to go quick. Don't leave the heat on this one for too long. or the wire ends will shrivel up on you. A little bit of tinning on there. And this it serves two functions. One function, of course, is to keep the wires all as one piece, to take a stranded core, flexible piece of wire, and sort of at least make the ends solid core. And for when we solder them to the pots, it makes life a lot easier too. So we make a little bit of a mess here. But these kits are sort of designed to be made by amateurs, so we're going to do this in amateur hour fashion. We're not going to go full-blown Mr. Carlson's lab, where we're going to get out the precise type of rosin we need and the precise type of whatever and really make it perfect. Because if you're a rookie at home buying a kit like this from Aliexpress for roughly $20-some, you're probably going to have what I'm using here. Okay, so I have two pots that are labeled B20K, and I have a third pot that is a mystery. I don't see the label on it, but that's okay, because there's two that are 20, and it appears that the, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, there's two 80K, or I can't read. I have B20K. B20K is speed. B20K is volume. And then depth is B500K. And this one doesn't necessarily have an easily readable label on it, so, well, if these are both 20K and they sent me 3, the other one should be the 500. And I know somebody's going to be like, well, you should measure it. You have a meter sitting right there on your desk. Why don't you measure it? Because I'm just trying to crank through and have fun making a project. I don't want to make this from being just a fun project to being a nightmarish experiment. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tin the leads on each of these pots. Get them nice and coated. And the bodies on these are fairly resistant to heat, but again, try not to roast your potentiometers. Roasting any of your components is always bad for them, so try not to do that. And then once you get them done, what I generally do is find something that will hold them up, which in this case my little snippers will, and then we will always do the middle one first. We'll touch the, actually let me nip that just a little shorter, but I've already got it in the nippers, so we'll use a blade. There we go. What we'll do is, since I've got both sides tinned, I just give it a touch. Hold it steady for 5 seconds. That'll bond right up and you won't be able to pull it off of there. So give it a little tug, make sure it's really on there good. Now if I was doing this for a customer or doing this for anything other than me screwing around in my basement, we would put a little bit of shrink wrap on that to protect it. The other thing we do when I'm doing these for customers or anybody other than me screwing around myself, so I actually cut a piece of plastic. I traced the board and cut a little piece of plastic to put on the bottom of the board, so when we put it in the case, and it's going to be, you know, circuit board down, it can't ground out against the bottom of the case. If a customer were ordering one, that's how we would do it. If it's me screwing around here, I cover the bottom of the board in electrical tape, which is probably what I would have you do at home. But again, there are two different things. There's me screwing around with a pedal kit I haven't made before because I want to hear how it sounds, and you already know how it sounds if you're watching this video, because it means I successfully got this thing to work and you've already heard it, so now you're just watching me build it. At this point I have no idea what it sounds like, so I may finish this up and be like, it's okay. I wouldn't want to sell this to a customer. I do sell these. And if you want the official ones, if you actually order one, if you ask nicely, I will actually film the building of yours on YouTube so you can see how I do one for somebody other than myself. Okay, so that is not quite good because a couple of the little leads there, or the wires on the cord there, are coming apart. So we're going to put a little bit more solder on there to unify that, so we don't have any stray wire. So once we get that soldered, we should be able to try to twist the wire, pull in the wire, and I shouldn't see any flyaways going anywhere. If I see any flyaways, I'm going to want to touch that up with the solder because I don't want this to short out in any way, shape, or form. I don't want any leg of my pot to short out against any other leg of my pot because that would be bad. Okay, so this is the A20K pot. So we'll use this one as the speed pot. So I will be putting them in S1, S2, and S3 respectively. The way that they label these, when you're looking at the back, it would be 1, 2, 3. So the speed pot would go, actually no, this one only needs 2 wires. Excuse me, the speed pot only needs 2 wires, not 3. So since I already put 3 wires on here, like a silly head, we're going to make this one the volume pot since this is 20K. So we'll do volume, it's 1, 2, 3, and there's a V1, V2, V3 respectively. So put this one into V1, slip that through, and we'll try to give it a little bit of a tweak when it gets through the board so it doesn't fall back out on me. And then V2 and V3, oh, these 3 are all symmetrically right next to each other. Of course, the first one I do doesn't have them sprawled all over the place, even though I said, hey, beware, they're sprawled all over the place. Ha! But that's okay. Hopefully when you watch these videos, you're smiling along with me and realizing that I am, despite the fact that I do electronic stuff more on the hobby level and do computer stuff on the professional level, in the end of the day, I'm just one of you guys who likes to fiddle around with electronics for fun. Okay, there's that. Okay, so that's fine. That's our volume pot in place. And maybe when it goes up here, I'll kind of give the wires a little bit of a roll or something like that to kind of save a little space, make it look cool. Now I have depth 321 and speed 3 and 2. So let's see, there's S3, speed 3. And there's speed 2. And speed 1 is unused. So that would be a B20K, so we'll use that pot. And we'll prep 2 wires. And hey, maybe if nothing else, you can look at the time of my demo, which is, my demo is going to be what, 2 minutes? How long does it take to demonstrate a tremolo pedal? It works, and here it is. Got speed, volume, and depth, and you turn the knobs and it does stuff. So after you hear the pedal, suppose if you just want to know how long it took me to build it, you can just look at the time on the video and you'll be like, oh, okay, that's going to take an hour and 20 minutes if I'm BSing about it and whatever. I don't know. I hope you all enjoy this. If you do enjoy watching these things being built all the way through, you can mention it in the comments section. It always makes me feel good. But I was surprised. Okay, so I've been working a half an hour because I just heard the generator shut down. And the runs its exercise cycle for 30 minutes. Okay. Tinned. Why does this wire already look like it's been tinned? It's not. It looks like it. Why does it look like it? If you're ever tinning short wires, be aware of it because the heat will creep right up there and these things will get hot to the touch. I'm trying to, I can actually feel the heat in my fingers, but I'm trying to, move along efficiently enough that I'm not jumping in the middle of what I'm doing. So on the speed pot we need to do 3 and 2 respectively. Okay. Okay, so there's a little bit of a solder blob on there. Yeah. Got a little bit of a solder blob there, so I'm just going to tidy that up because I don't like that. Okay. And gave our plastic on our pot just a little bit of a heat rash, but not much. It happens. Again, if I were at the regular workbench rather than the filming workbench, we would have little vices and tools and things to hold everything in place. But we don't have any of that because I'm doing this in the style of somebody who doesn't have nice tools. Sorry to block the shot, but I'm going to keep everything still. I'm going to have to heat it up for a couple of seconds. It's messing with my mojo. Really got to keep that still. I don't want to give it too much heat rash. Electronics are pretty resilient, but you don't want to barbecue them too bad. They don't like that. Actually, let's put a little bit more solder on our wire. A little extra solder on the wire should hopefully help it bond a little quicker. It looks like it bonded pretty good. Yep. Ain't going anywhere. That's the key when you're doing these in this fashion. When you're done, you just have to be able to say, well, that isn't going to fall off. Because once you get this thing in the box, other than going into the battery compartment, or if you're like me, you're probably never going to go into the battery compartment. You're just going to power it with your power supply. So here's my shameless plug for the Powerhouse V. Ooh, this is actually a pretty super duty power supply. You can read about that on my website. That's the prototype, and she's beautiful. That thing will power my vacuum tube, pedals, and everything else, and it does. That one's wired for 9 volts and 12 volts. I like it a lot. Okay, so I've got speed 2 and speed 3 on here. So speed 2 is the middle one, so we'll go over here to there, speed 2. S2 is speed but you knew that. And then S3 is over here. Just speed 3, but you knew that too. Okay, so speed 2 and 3 are in their respective holes. And we'll solder that down. Now, granted, I'm not doing this in a beautiful lab environment. I'm doing this on a card table in a basement. But after you've been doing stuff for a while, there's a lot of times, especially if you're doing like pro audio or something, you've got to solder, you know, a stage box in a stage or something. You don't have a beautiful workbench. If you're lucky, you've got one of those little helping hand clippy things to try to hold things in place. But you learn to sort of MacGyver things. You need a wire to stop moving, you throw a wrench on top of it to hold it in place. And, you know, if it works, right? Okay, so there's one more pot. Here's this one. And we're going to need all 3 wires for it. That's our depth pot, 321, and that's going to go to D321 respectively. Okay. And yes, all of you at home, automatic wire strippers would be more efficient. But despite the fact that I've had them, and had, you know, that one or just the clamp wire strippers or whatever, I've gotten so used to stripping these with a knife, I just strip them with a knife. And that way I can feel what I'm doing. And I haven't cut my thumb off in many, many years. But I'm here to be a bad example for everybody on YouTube. And I'm sure a few of you at home are saying, don't you get solder everywhere when you do this? And the answer is, kinda. But that's why we're working on an old greasy table. And we drop our wire on the ground. What did that even go? Okay, never mind it. Back here. Pull in your chair, silly head. Kick your table too, because it's good for you. That one's not. It's actually hard to tell on the one which one was tinned and which wasn't. That's not a good sign. Okay. Tin. Okay. Okay. Close enough for government work. So this is a 500K according to our sheet. I'm assuming our sheet's in the frame. I hope it is. I set the camera before I start working, and then we just work. And we don't stop the camera unless we have to. That's how we roll around here. And we screwed up again. We made a solder blob on our potentiometer because we were trying to get enough solder on there to do our thing, but that one was easy to get rid of, so there we go. I always try to remember to do the middle one first. And that actually worked pretty good, but I had a little too much solder and the one kind of made a tail. So rather than try to wipe the tail away with the soldering iron, which might cause this to disconnect, I'll just clip it off with the clippers. Still okay, no touching. And we'll do this one. Okay, so putting a little bit more solder on the pots helped them to bond easier with less fuss, but it ended up with a little bit messier looking connection. But it's still 100% functional, it's not shorting out or anything. So, looking at the back of these, if these are 3, 2, 1, this would be depth 3 or D3. D3. Give that a bend over. D2 is over here. And D3 just popped out. I'll go back and fix that. And then D1 is way over here, so this one's pretty sprawled out. And I got a little bit of a soldered dot on there and it won't let me push it through the hole. It's laughing at me, man, it's laughing at me. So, if we can knock that down, and we'll try again. There we go. Flip it over. And put it down. So 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, and 1. That looks close enough. We're good. Yep, she's in there. Nothing's sticking up high enough that it's going to short on anything. I think that's good. And all of these will reach basically any position we can get to at the top of the roster. So that's good. Okay. So now we have the LED plus and minus. So we'll need 2 wires for that. The LED is going up here amongst all of these. And that's sitting right here. The LED will actually pop out of its holster, so if it makes it easier to take it out of its holster, by all means do so. The longer lead, as they managed to indicate here, the longer lead of the two is the positive. And what I generally do with these LEDs is I sprawl the leads out because they're real close to each other, so we sprawl them out. And let's see, the long lead is this one. So that's our positive. So what we'll do is we'll bend that one a perfect 90 so I can remember. And then I end up putting the cords out at the end of the 90. So that way, this isn't going to pinch itself back together and short. Because shorting is bad. Okay? Don't short things. Need another piece of wire. Get our wire stash. Yeah, we're going to have plenty of wire, and then we're going to have some wire left over. So if one of our other kits is missing some wire, we'll have it. Okay. That's cool. I like how that's tipping in the solder there. Artful. See if it stays in there. If that just keeps going, I'll say it's a free energy machine. Yeah, it's a free energy machine. It'll be a viral video. Oh, look at it. It just keeps going. It just keeps going. It's a perpetual motion machine. I'm sorry, that's a little dark humor, isn't it? Seriously, why is it that all of these amazing perpetual motion machines show up on YouTube, but in real life nobody ever gets to really check them out? It's amazing. We've achieved over unity, people. We broke the laws of thermodynamics because you don't understand quantum mechanics or quantum physics or something that we understand, despite the fact that we are soliciting you to give us money. Oh, that couldn't be it. But we can't actually build you the machine because the government would come get us, so we have to sell you a kit to build the machine. I like buying kits to build things, but when I buy kits to build things, I generally expect them just to be kits more like this, that are just a function and they do something, and then we have fun with them and enjoy them. So I bent the positive lead 90 degrees, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap my piece of wire around it here, if I can. Get a little hook on there. It doesn't want to make a hook. Start our perpetual motion machine back up again. That's being tedious. I tinned that wire too good. Where's my little needle nose pliers? I do have one up there. There we go. There we go. So we'll make a little hook, and then we'll clip our hook on there and give our hook a pinch. Now I want to, despite the fact that I kind of want to be 90 degrees out from the LED, I don't want to be way out from the LED, because I'm going to want these leads nice and short, again, so we don't short out on anything. So now that we got that there, put a dab of solder on that. Come on, play nice with me. There we go. So that's our hot lead, or our plus lead, I should say. Hot and common is 120 volt. We're playing with 9 volts DC here. Okay, let's give that a nip. We got one of the two on there. Now, I'll put the wire on the other end, but I'm not going to clip that off just yet because I need to be able to recognize which is which when I tack them in the board. So, just remember that I've cut the hot lead, or I've cut the plus lead, and I haven't yet cut the minus lead. So we'll make a hook here, nip the excess. Give that a pinch. She still wants to slide a little bit, but that's close enough. I can get that to solder up from there. Come on, stay in one spot for me. Help me out, man. Help me out. There we go. Okay, so we're soldered on there. That's good. That's good. So we'll go to the LED plus switches right here. Put that one there. And I tinned a few of these wires too good. They're stiff, they don't want to bend. Okay. And then LED minus is up here. See why I said we're going to put the switch in last? Because if that switch were in the way, I'd be trying to work real tight against it. I'll put the switch in last. So glad this board fits the switch. I had two boards. It was Distortion 1, DS1, and then there's an Overdrive 3. And for whatever reason, Overdrive 3 isn't yet working, and I haven't sat down and taken the time to walk the schematic with the tracers and everything else. But those were made for a switch that only had 6 connectors instead of the 8. So when you get the one with the 8, you got to do, or 8, 9, 6, yeah, 9, not 6. So when you get the one with the 9, you got to put it on with wires. And I believe I was crabbing about that in another video when I was demonstrating distortion number 1. I really liked the sound of it, but the build of it was a bit bothersome. Bothersome, that's a good way to put it. It wasn't impossible, but overdrive number 3 has one of those with the 6-pin, and that one is actually frustrating me because I got that one together and it does not work correctly yet. I don't give up, but okay, we can do the battery clip because there's battery plus and minus in that one. Since it's not marked on the battery clip, red is plus. I assumed we all knew that. Wait a minute, yeah, red's plus. What am I thinking about? The other thing I like about these that I didn't find on Overdrive 1 or Distortion 1 is you have to wire your power jack disconnect battery circuit thing manually. We can cover that, but I have the schematic for it. But if you need to wire your what we do with these is on the output side, if there's no cable plugged in, the pedal won't turn on, and when you plug the power jack in, it disconnects the battery. So that is all built into this boards. Any of these boards like this, it's built in, so that's super. Alright, now let's take a look at this. This is a tip ring sleeve. So this one would be tip, because it comes down the farthest. The ring would probably be the one up here. This would be ring, and then this would be sleeve. Yeah, I'm pretty confident of that. But when all else, you know, it's better to check yourself than screw up. So let's grab ourselves a cable off the floor. And kick the camera too. Hopefully I didn't screw up our shot too bad. Plug that in, take a look. Yep, that's tip, that's ring, and that's sleeve. Okay, good, so I was right. So this one will be our output jack, because our output jack is going to be tip, ring, and sleeve. So we don't need as long of wire for that, so we'll say about that much. Alright. And on these particular jacks, I've done these enough, I'm going to shortcut the process a little bit. Because these have the sort of thin loops, there's loops to put the wire in. That's the word I was looking for. Since there's a loop to put the wire in, you usually have enough hold down that you can just solder it on there without having to pre-tin your wire. So that's what we're going to do. Just tin the far sides that go in the board afterwards. Okay, so we're going to put that into the loop, and we're going to bend that over like that. That, see, that just kind of clips right on there, so that's pretty nice. That's totally okay in my book. So if it go all the way through the loop, and this one of the strands came off, so we want to get all the strands through the loop. Try not to miss one. And it doesn't matter which loop goes with which wire yet. It matters which wire we put down on the board later, right? Yeah. Some of these jacks are really slim, and on the boards that have a ton of stuff all over them, the guys ship a real slim jack. And some of these pedals, oh my gosh, to try to get everything in the box, it's tight. And this one is not going to be that way, I can just tell. So that's fine. I would say at this point, assuming this pedal works correctly, which if you're watching this video, it means it did, and it does, this would be the least frustrating pedal I've built to this point. So if this is going to be your first one, and you like tremolo, because you want to sound like Dwayne Eddy, right? Who doesn't like Dwayne Eddy? This one. And I probably have somebody going, who's Dwayne Eddy? I'm not even that old, and I know who Dwayne Eddy is, but anybody who's sort of a I'll just say a music history enthusiast, I suppose. Most people who play guitar obviously know a lot of different musicians. Rock and roll people obviously may know different people than country people, but if you like country, rockabilly kind of stuff, Dwayne Eddy was one of the guys. And they used a lot of cool tremolo, and he used to work with a guy by the name of Lee Hazelwood. You guys are sitting here going, who's Lee Hazelwood? I don't know who Lee Hazelwood is either. Goofy old man. Lee Hazelwood wrote a lot of songs that he did not end up performing himself. Most famously, he wrote These Boots Are Made for Walking for Nancy Sinatra. So one of these days these boots are going to walk all over you. Okay, so we had a jump cut because the battery in the camera had reached expiration. But we're back. I didn't do anything that y'all didn't see. So if you're trying to follow along with me at home or something, that's okay. So, got our tip ring sleeve. Now, they're labeled a little different on these boards. The tip is going to be labeled out tip. Okay, out tip is good. And then they label the how do we do this? What is PWC? PWC is the ring. Okay, let's see if I got this right. This is very interesting. I haven't seen these done that way. So this is the out jack anyway. Oh wait, no, that's the in jack. Okay, they're having us wire the in jack to the switch. Okay. So they're having you wire the grounds together and then to the corner of that resistor. That's fine. PWC there, and then PWB is going to the brick. So PWC is going to be our ring, and then our tip will go to in tip. So this will be the in jack in this case. So tip will be in tip. That's fine. The in ring will be PWC. Boy, that does not want to stay in place, so I'm just going to solder one leg here so she quits wandering around. You know how I am, I like to solder 2 or 3 things in a clip when I flip over a board, but that's not a good idea right now in this case. And then this is PWC is the ring, which is the middle connector. The outside edge is called the sleeve. Put PWC there. Okay. This is a little different than a few of the other ones I've done before, but with this style board I've had good success just doing whatever the directions say, regardless of, you know, what I think of them. So that's fine. Okay, so the other end of this, which would be the in jack, is going to need 2 wires. So we'll cut 2 wires here for that. And one of them will be extra long. So that'll be to the tip there, and then we'll give an extra long one for the ground. Okay. And what it's telling me to do the directions here, despite the fact that there's a bit of a language barrier on these Aliexpress kits, it's not too bad. It's not too bad, so I applaud the effort. Okay. So this one, they have it activating when you have a guitar plugged into the pedal on the in jack rather than the out jack. I've seen them done both ways, but either way, the idea is if nothing is plugged into it at all, then it doesn't turn on. So we need to hook up the tip, which is this one. So we'll go here. That one. And then the sleeve, which is our ground, they're having me hook the grounding sleeve from here, which of course now that it's tinned it doesn't want to go in, of course. And that solder, it's flat enough, we'll give it a squeeze and see if that helps. There. Go. Still doesn't want to play ball with me. So we'll give it a little bit of an assistance. That's what we call it, assistance, yes. Open that up a little bit. This is really not wanting to play ball with me. It's trying to make me look like a dodo on camera. Let's see here. Can we spread that a little bit with a bit of help with a tool of some sort? Stab my finger. That's good. Stab our fingers. That's all good. I do have an idea. We can do this. Give that a twist there. I like to not break it, but if I do break it, I'm still not hosed. Let's see if it'll go in that way. That's our untinned wire. It's this one I need to get in there. That one's just not playing ball. Is that extra thick or something? Yeah, it's just a little on the thick side on account of the tinning. Nuts. Well, we learned the hard way. If you want to get these through here, don't tin them first, at least on these jacks. The rest of it, tin away. Alright. we'll just snip off our little bit of tinning there. And I should be able to get through that jack without too much fuss. There's one. Little J-hook. And we'll go with the other one, because there's 2 wires on this ground. Remember, just like on our diagram, do it like the diagram. Okay. And then we'll solder these 2 jacks on. Nice good joint there. There we go. Okay, that should work. Okay. So a little bit. And this is our ground, which I'm going to have to come back and tie to this resistor back here, according to the diagram. And then this is my out. So it's my out tip, which will go into there. That's good there, and then we have to tie our ground from this jack. They suggest tying it to this resistor down here in the corner. Solder ground wire to the end of that resistor. So let's tin that wire first. And then we'll clip it. No, we're not. Let's not clip it. Let's see if we can hook it. And that way we get a mechanical connection on there and it's less likely to botch. Because if I just do the tin and touch technique like I do on the pots, it's not as good of a connection. So let's just try to do the best connection we can. See if we can actually get under there. Of course, I make sure I tighten my resistors down to the board very firmly. And then on the day we want to actually slip something underneath because I didn't read the directions before I started. Ha ha. There we go. Give her a little bump and then she comes up a little higher, right? There we go. Now we can hook under there. Beautiful. And then we'll solder right there. Alright, there we go. So, we're almost there, peoples. Only a couple more to do. We still have to do the power jack, which is going to go to... Okay, and there's one more boo-boo I did here, and it's not a detrimental boo-boo, okay? Not detrimental, but it's a... You should have been paying more good attention, silly head. I got our jacks here. Now we have to do our power connector, and then lastly we'll do our big stomp box switch. Okay, so power jack, we're going to need 3 wires. One is just going to the other jack here, our in jack. One is going to PWB on the board, and then to the 9 volts. So where did my spin of wire go? It's right here. It's tedious, man. It's freaking tedious. Sounds like my family just got home. Now watch, they're going to peer into the basement and try to talk to me. That's just what they do. Because they don't know we're filming. How inconsiderate my family is of my YouTube channel. He said facetiously. I know a bunch of other tech types that are, you know, you get into working on something and then somebody wants to talk to you. So, that's okay. So for this one, we're going to do the same sort of hook technique on this puppy. Just like we did on the jacks. There's enough meat on there that we don't necessarily need to pre-tin what we're doing. Just go through the hole, make a hook. And then solder it on. That looks a little excessive, but that's okay. That one I want to touch up because I don't like that blob. There. Makes me feel better. Okay, good evening. So you didn't miss anything. The camera battery was going dead, and I had some other things to attend to, so I actually took a break. So here we are now that the camera battery is charged back up, and we're going to solder our leads onto our power jack. We've done one, there's still two more to do. Now, that said, there is one thing we have to not forget. Is our soldering iron heating up yet? Not yet. First we gotta wait for the stupid soldering iron to get heated up. Take a look at our jack. That one attaches from the inside. So we will have to screw this to the box before we attach it to the circuit board. And that's okay, albeit a little inconvenient. Okay, so I think at this point our soldering iron is warmed up. Yep. Okay, that looks close enough for government work. So I think I want my one wrench. Get that wrench in a few minutes. So this is going to go here. It would suck if we got this on here and then realized that, you know, we had this issue. Usually if you have a small adjustable jaw wrench, like a crescent wrench, that usually works real well. And if you don't have one at your bench at the moment, you can use a pair of pliers. This thing's just plastic, so you don't want to crank the heck out of it, just enough to make it not want to fall back out and not want to twist around easily in there. Okay, so it doesn't twist easily, and it's in there. Okay. So this part goes to PWC. Which is going to go up to that jack. And then that's PWC. This is the 9-volt in. So this is going to go here. You can already tell this is getting ugly. So before this gets too ugly, let's change plans a little. Putting longer wires on that would have been a plus, but that's okay. Let's solder this down to here first. This will be the second to last thing we solder down. Now with this, I recommend soldering the corners first, and then that way you can have it, you know, level. You want to get this kind of all the way in the corner. So if you're trying to get it soldered and even, sometimes it just makes more sense to just pick up some solder on your iron and just tack it while you're holding it. Although it's not a beautiful, perfect solder joint, now it's going to stay in place, and then I can come and touch it up in the end. Because trying to hold that in place while you solder it is a mess. So just tacking a corner first helps. Okay, so that's on there nice. And now we just have 7 more pads to do. And instead of unspooling, my solder roll is following me. These little jacks take a lot of solder because there's an eyelet in the middle if you were to slip wires through. That tends to suck up a good deal of the solder. So you can be generous on these. There we go. That looks good. Okay, so now we have the 9 volts and the other one's on here. So this would be the plus 9 volts. Ooh, it's still hot down there. My finger just told me. Okay. See what I mean when I say it starts to get tight when you go to put them in the box? This is what we were talking about. But you'll be surprised if you can just stick with it. You'll get it all in the box. So I'm going to get that in the 9 volt if I can. Hey, looks like I tinned that a little too much. Sprawled it. Now sometimes taking a break for a few hours like I did, you might lose your place, and you need to, you know, feel free to reference your manual. Take a couple minutes and remember what exactly you were working on and where you're at. Okay, there's 9 volts. Now we have, this is the PWB on here, which is right here in the corner. And again, it feels like I over-tinned it. There it goes, I did get it through the hole. Okay, cool. Solder that. And then the last one, this one right here, needs to go on the jack that is also the input jack. So this is the jack on the inside, so right here, and that's going to go up there. So this is going to go to the ring of this one. So not the tip, but the ring. I know it's hard for you to see what I'm doing here. But the ring is that one right there. And there we go. Now we should pretty much have a working pedal, except we have to stuff it in the box. So if you're concerned about it, you can always test it now. Put a power supply on it, plug something in it and test it. But I live dangerously, and my gut says this is going to work. And if it didn't work, you already know about it because I'm cursing it at the beginning of my video. If I were suspicious of anything parts-wise in here, it would be the mutant capacitor and our light for our LED goes up at the head on this project. So we need to put that in first. I got some random leads that stuck to a piece that went in there, so I'll have to pluck those out of there. You don't want random junk laying inside your case. That can make things short out. And I think I've already said a half a dozen times that shorting out is bad. One of the other tricks I do on these sometimes is I can hold the nut in place with my thumb and then spin the thing. There's no good way to get a wrench into that corner, so we'll do that with the little pliers. And then we're going to go get that wrench to do the pots. So I'll be right back once I get the wrench. Okay, and we're back, but this time with a wrench. So I got to refigure out which pot's which. But if we remember from before, the speed pot only has 2 wires on it, right? So the one with 2 wires is this one, and it goes over here. So we'll just put that one in, pin it down, and spin the nut and washer on it. And then we'll take the adjustable jaw wrench and snug it real good. Okay, now I got to figure out which one's volume and which one's depth. So This one I can see one lead going to V3, so V is volume, so that's going to be our volume. Let it go in the middle. They don't have to be dead on straight in the box, but I think they look better if they are, so a little tweak, see if we can get that a little straighter. You got to make sure that those pots are snug enough, because if they're not, then they're going to turn inside the box. And if they do that, then you end up with wires breaking, and broken wires sucks. And I hope our LED wires are long enough. I think they are. Just long enough. Yeah, you realize what a mess the wires are after you get the wiring a little bit. Put the LED in its holster. It just presses in there. And then here's our two jacks, the in and the out. And this one would be the in. So it's going to go on this side. And the more stuff you try to put in here, the tighter it gets. So you're going to be fussing and fiddling around with the wires a little bit. So I apologize for the crummy view and the camera angles. If I were trying to film this for perfect instruction, it would be a mess, because there's no beautiful, pretty way to do that. So we'll get the input jack in place. Snug it up with the wrench. And then one more. Now we gotta get the output jack into the box. Input jack is almost kinda sorta in the way, and if you do one of these, you'll understand what I mean when I say almost kinda sorta, because it's not, but it is, because the wires are. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen the input jack so I can wiggle it around to make it easier to get the output jack down in there. And as soon as we get that down at far enough an angle that it goes through, oh, there it is. Okay. Cool. I'm going to spin that nut for the, according to my camera, I have 8 seconds left. So we need to screw this nut on, test the pedal, and put the knobs on. Okay, here's our addendum if you're planning on building this. You're actually looking at it on my computer screen, And there's the kit and the pieces parts. Scroll down. There's the unit assembled. They used longer wires than I did, but that's okay. This is a key. When mine didn't work, I looked at this picture. There's an additional wire added because there's a missing connection on the board, and then there's a jumper added on the bottom over here. As soon as I added those, my circuit worked. Secondly, do not trust the markings on the board for the orientation of the transistors. Use this picture for the orientation of the transistors. So this one needs to face the red capacitor, and these two, the flat spot, faces the outside of the board. You do that, yours should work like mine. Okay, thanks for watching.